Hey GBA fans, it's your friend Choice CJ here.
Who?
And welcome to my GBA D-League draft analysis video. We are your coach of the Baltimore Oriolus, and we are definitely going to be bringing it this season. Going to be trying to make our mark on the D-League and make it to playoffs and make a nice run and potentially position ourselves to make it into the GBA main league for season 9. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys, if you're here, you are here for the first time, and if you are, I do want to say welcome. And if you're asking yourselves, hey, who the hell is this Choice CJ guy? Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've been doing YouTube for almost 2.5 years now. I started out in a small league called the Orange League, run by my good pal, the Ryan Plummer, so shoutouts to him. Since then, I've been involved in leagues such as UBC, PMC, UPC, WPA, P4G Next Generation. List goes on and on and on. And I'm happy to say I've made a lot of really great friends through the process. And you know, I do want to say, of course, thanks to all the people who've supported me along the way, giving me opportunities. And you know, that includes Tom as well from the GBA. 2 seasons ago, he took me on as an analyst, and I was on a show called Game of the Week that was started out being co-hosted by Aster J, who is also now in the GBA main. So good for him. He is a really cool guy and a very good battler. And when he got promoted to Power Rankings, James Sanity took over. So big thanks to him for helping me along in that series. And then this most recent season of the GBA, I was the Pick'ems analyst along with Gregulator, who is also in the GBA D-League. It's just nice to be in GBA D-League, but not just that, but to be in it with a lot of friends. So people like Greg and like Leo and Aaron and things like that. You know, I'm happy to feel like, you know, I'm not just here trying to promote myself and, you know, suck up and brown nose to whoever. I feel like I am surrounded by friends. And that's kind of the best part about being accepted to D-League for me. So with all that said, I'm sure you didn't come here to listen to all that sort of bullshit. You came here to look at the Mons and hear a little bit about my thought process as the draft went on. And so without further ado, let's kick things off. I'm sure everybody knows how GBA type drafts tend to work. They're usually tier based. There's usually 11 Mons that you have to pick. This one is no different. You know, it's a snake style draft. You have to pick a mega, and the GBA D League is using pretty much the same Zmon rules that GBA Season 8 used, and I think also GBA D League Season 3 used, where basically you get 100 points, and depending upon the tier of which the Mon is in, I don't think that was proper grammar, but depending upon the tier they're in, they cost a certain number of points to assign it a Z Crystal. So like tier 1 costs 80, tier 5 costs 20, and like the other tiers are somewhere in between. I don't remember exactly. So very standard rules. There's 12 teams in the D League this year, as opposed to 10 from last season, and opposed to, I guess, most normal drafts have like 16 teams. And so, you know, it's pretty nice. We should have plenty of opportunities to get the Mons that we want just because there's less competition. You know, it's sort of mitigated by the fact that it is a tier-based draft, so you do have to fit everything into the specific slots, right? Whereas in a lot of point-based drafts, you maybe have a little bit more flexibility. So, you know, with that said, though, there's still a lot of good opportunities for us to team build here. And we did get the 3rd overall pick. Now, right before the draft starts, I get a message from my buddy Greg. He had just traded up from the 12th slot up to number 4. And he messages me and he goes, CJ, you gotta help me out, man. I've been dying to use Tapu Koko in a draft forever. Like, please, for the love of God, do not take Tapu Koko. I want it. I want it. And I was like, you know, like, I honestly was thinking about taking Tapu Koko there, right? Because I just finished up using it in P4G Next Generation. It might be the most fun Mon I've ever used. It's potentially the best Mon I've ever used. I think the only thing that I've used that was like more effective for me was in UBC Season 3 when I used Mega Lopunny. You know, and that was back in the heyday of Gen 6, right after ORAS came out, and Lopunny was like the hottest thing on the block, and it's still very good, but I think people have learned how to have counterplay for Lopunny. But I digress. I was thinking hard about it, and I was like, you know what, Greg, you know, you can have Tapu Koko. There's another mon on the board here that I definitely have my eye on, and that mon is Mega Latios. Now, this is one of the first times, actually, that GBA is allowing Mega Lati, and I think that's really amazing. You know, I think, you know, people are becoming more and more brave with their tier lists. You see plenty of leagues allowing the Mega Lati and like Mega Latios specifically. Mega Latios is still sometimes banned by leagues, but Mega Kang has become very common as long as it's not packing S-Toss. Mega Mawile is very common. You even have lots of leagues like ICBA and P4G Next Generation that are allowing kind of like Uber's mons, like Naganadel and Deoxys and Aegislash and things like that. So it's cool to see the GBA testing some things out, and I will be happy to prove to them how broken this mon is, because it just has so many sets that it can run, physical and special, you know, offensive, bulky. It has great utility moves with Defog, Memento, Calm Mind, etc., etc. This thing is just unbelievable. You know, and the natural bulk that it has, like, it rivals other bulky psychics like Reuniclus, Mew. Not quite Cresselia levels, but it's not far off from that. So I knew Latios, Mega Latios was a mon that I could build around, and you know, it makes me feel a little bit better about passing up on Tapu Koko, because I might not get a chance to use Mega Latios again for a while, and I know that it's going to put in the work. It's very exciting. So with this in mind, there's a few things obviously that threaten Mega Latios, you know, defensively and offensively. So it's weak to Dark Psychic, sorry, not Dark Psychic, Dark Ice. It's weak to Bug. It's weak to Dragon. It's weak to Fairy. A lot of those types are covered by Klefki, but I didn't want to take Klefki round 2, of course. But you know, that's something that I was thinking about after I made the Mega Latios pick. Defensively, Latios is checked pretty well by Steals and Fairies to some extent, and also, I guess, to a lesser extent, to bulky Psychics. And so I'm trying to think of things that can offensively pressure Steals, Fairies, and Psychics. And Terrakion is a mon that came to mind. Oh, and by the way, I should be mentioning my nicknames on this. Mega Latios is Thanos Copter. Shoutouts to Marvel Comics and Marvel Studios. Become a big Marvel fan in the last year or so. Basically, ever since I saw Spider-Man: Homecoming in theaters, I went back and I watched all 16 films up to that point, and then watched Thor, and then Black Panther, and then obviously most recently Infinity War. Infinity War is the 19th movie that they've had. But that is my Latios, and then my Terrakion is Mad Dog Tannen, named after Biff Tannen from Back to the Future, and because he's just a total brute, and that's exactly what Terrakion is. This thing has very, very few switch-ins. If you're not named like Doublade or Aegislash or Skarmory, like, you don't really switch into this, and Skarmory doesn't even really switch in. Like, I've made this my Z-Mon. I did spend the 80 points to make this a Z-Move user. Skarm doesn't switch in on a +2 all-out pummeling after rocks. It just doesn't. or a Continental Crush. It's just totally wild. Yeah, Terrakion, you know, Steel types, I guess, can switch in on the rock moves. Because Terrakion, like, because it's such good offensive stabs, like, opposing teams are going to be in a situation where they kind of have to, like, even if their mons are weak to one of Terrakion's types, if they resist the other, they can put a damage-reducing berry on, and then that might be the best thing that they can do to check Terrakion. So you have, like, a Registeel on the opposing side of the field. Like, you can run a Chople Berry Registeel, and then you're fairly good for checking Terrakion in that case. You can go for Iron Head, go for Thunder Wave, whatever it is that you want to do. But forcing that prep is very beneficial for Latios, because then, you know, that's one less move slot or one less item that they can use to better check Lati. Like, they can't run leftovers in that case, which would be very annoying for Latios. Or if you have like a Clefable that is is trying to switch in on Terrakion on its close combat, if you hit that with a Stone Edge, it's going to be able to, it's not going to be able to check Latios anymore. These are just some examples that I'm trying to think of. So I like it because these two mons can sort of break for one another. And Terrakion has additional utility as well with Stealth Rock, Taunt, etc. So it even has Calm Mind, which is really cheeky. So Terrakion, in addition to being a good partner for Lottie, it's just a mon that I've wanted to use for a long time. Ever since I got back into Pokemon at the end of Gen 5, Terrakion's been one of my favorites, and so it's a pleasure to finally have that on the team. And we're going to make our best effort to show it off throughout this season. So I've got these two mons. They're pretty good partners for one another. Again, I'm thinking of Klefki for later on in the draft. I feel like because I don't have to take that right away. Once again, I have an opportunity here to take a mon that I've also had my eye on for a very long time. I've seen folks like Gypsy King abuse the hell out of this mon, and that mon is Suicune, and I'm naming it Panthro after Thundercats. So shout outs to that show. Gotta love those classics. But Suicune is just so hard to prepare for. Because you can prepare for a certain set and just get totally blown back by a different set. It has a ton of options for beating its checks. Like, for example, if you're facing off versus a team with a Ferrothorn or a Superior or something like that, you can just run Vincoon and very easily pressure stall your opponent out of things. You can run the classic Crocoon sets, which are impossible to break if you don't have like a strong physical, grass, or electric type.
This stupid dog won't die!
Or if you don't bring something with Taunt. Just Roarcoon is amazing. This one is just, it's so underrated. It's just so crazy. It's just such a fat mon. And like, if your opponent doesn't prep for it, it can win games on its own. But if you're going versus smart players, which is what a lot of the D-League is, it is very restrictive on team building. And so I like to have that advantage in prep, where like if there's not a proper check to Suicune, that my opponent is going to just lose 6-0. And so I can sort of expect certain types of sets based on just how restrictive Suicune is. So that was the main reason I wanted to get Suicune. Because it's just such a good mon, and I've seen it used so much that I really wanted to give my hand at it. So that's my third overall pick. Fourth overall, I'm still not quite ready to take Klefki. In fact, I actually have my eye on Gliscor. And the reason Gliscor would be cool is because Gliscor combined with Suicune, I think could be really, really dirty in combination with Toxic Spikes. But it was funny, during the draft, Greg, he's thinking about what he wants to take. I go right after Greg, and I message him, and I was like, "Hey, what are you thinking about taking?" And he says, "Oh, well, I'm choosing between Como-O and Gliscor." And I was like, "Oh shit, is he gonna take my Gliscor?" So I tell him, I'm thinking about taking one of those two mons. It'd be nice if you'd let me have it. And I didn't specifically say or whatever, but I figured he could determine which one I was talking about, right? Like, I have Latios, I don't really need Como-O, so I figured that he would infer that. But no, Greg's a snake. He took that Gliscor in a heartbeat.
You didn't see that coming.
And I was devastated. I was so sad because that was like, I was just getting so excited about all the diversity of strategies I could break, but it wasn't meant to be. So because that was so devastating and I didn't really know what else to do, I decided just to go ahead and take my boy Good Design, aka Klefki, with the next pick. And yeah, as I mentioned, Klefki just has perfect defensive synergy with Lottie. And the two things that hit Klefki super effectively, fire and ground, are both resisted by Lottie. So they're just a perfect defensive pairing. And everyone knows what Klefki does. It just is probably like a top 5 support mon in the game, with dual screen support, supported by Prankster. It's got spikes, it's got Thunder Wave, it's got a whole bunch of good things like that. It even has some kind of cheeky options like Fairy Lock, which is really cool. Like, it basically gives you 1 turn of Arena Trap, which is quite nice. So I think Klefki, like, yes, there's a little bit of a risk that it becomes setup bait for certain mons, but that's kind of the sign of a good player, right? You can identify those things and make sure you're not taken advantage of. So like if there's strong steel types on your opponent's side of the team, make sure you don't have a Klefki set that can get taken advantage of. Like if there's a Mega Scizor, don't bring like Mono Dazzling Gleam versus a Mega Scizor team. Things like that. Like you just have to be aware of what could happen in the game. Think a few steps ahead. So I feel pretty comfortable with my ability to do that. I've used other sort of passive mons, people think are very passive, like Bronzong and whatever. So I think Klefki is going to be a great addition for the team. So the other mon that I really wanted to get, kind of to support this this strategy with Gliscor and Suicune that I was thinking of, I did end up picking with my 5th overall pick, even though I didn't get Gliscor to be the partner. I thought that it was still good enough to add to the team, and that is going to be D. Snyder, my Roserade. Shoutouts to Twisted Sister. And Roserade obviously has access to both spikes and toxic spikes, which are extremely important for my team. I'm getting quite a bit of hazards at this point. But yeah, the toxic spikes is what I really have my eye on, because it has the ability to combo with bulky sets of Suicune, bulky sets of Latios, and just wear down my opponent's team extremely quickly. But where I'm really excited to use Roserade actually is as an offensive breaker. Like base 125 is not bad. Like that's as much special attack as Bisharp has physical attack. Like Weavile has less physical attack than this thing has special attack. I'm trying to think of some other examples. Like it's stronger than a lot of the legendary dragons. Like I think it has the same special attack as Hydreigon. Yeah, so it's just super strong, and people are really going to sleep on this thing offensively. And you know it's supported as well by something like Technician, which gives it a 1.5x boost on moves like Hidden Power Fire and Hidden Power Ice if it's needed. So I think Roserade is really nice. It's got a good speed tier, base 90. Fantastic Spadef stat. You know, it's like a perfect switch into something like Keldeo. So Roserade, top tier pick. Really excited. Next, I wanted another rocker, and I also wanted a ground type. And this isn't quite as bad, but Greg did once again snipe me here. I was really looking at Toad, Seismitoad, because it's a mod that I really like using. Water Absorb is a fantastic ability, and it's got a decent speed tier at 74. Like for a wall, that's pretty good. But he took it one pick before me, and it's a little bit of payback because, you know, after I took the Gliscor, I took Roserade, and that was something that he really wanted. He was like very adamant about getting Roserade, so we're sort of one-upping one another at this point. And so he took Seismitoad, and so I sort of had to settle, but in the end of the day, actually, I'm quite happy to have this mon, and that is Swampert. Swampert's going to be named before Roids, which is pretty funny, because, you know, obviously when it Mega Evolves, it just becomes so ripped. It's got those giant biceps, and it's really crazy. But yeah, it doesn't have, like I said, as much speed as Seismitoad. Doesn't have a good ability like Seismitoad, but it does have some more some more offensive abilities and a better move pool. Like if this thing does get Waterfall and Aqua Tail, which are both things that Seismitoad does not. I'm getting mixed up with all Greg's damn frogs. It's out of control. But yeah, you know, it's got, you know, lots of awesome options like Power Up Punch and things like that. I've even seen some sets like Scar Swampert run before, and that's actually quite good. So I think Swampert's going to be an awesome addition to the team. And it is, I think it's my favorite Gen 3 starter. So I've never used it before, and excited to give it a shot. I'm happy to say that all 11 of the mons I took have never been on a team of mine before. So completely brand new here. I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm going to try and go through the last 5 mons pretty quick. I'm already at like 20 minutes in this video, and it's already longer than I meant for it to be. Next mon I took is Bruce Banner, the Darmanitan.
And I will not be bullied by that.
Now with Darmanitan, obviously this thing is a total nuke with ability Sheer Force and just a ridiculous attack stat at 140. It gives me my first pivot mon, I don't have any pivoting options up to this point. And that was something that I really wanted. I could have taken something in tier 3 such as Arcanine, but Arcanine, it doesn't have that ability to pivot around. It also doesn't just have the brute strength that Darmanitan does, even if it has a little bit more defensive value. I've got plenty of defensive value on my team so far. I just want a hard hitter, a mon that is very good with choiced items, choice band, choice scarf. Darmanitan really excels in that sort of role. And yeah, just I like offensive fire types. You want to have the ability to threaten annoying mons like just like fat grasses, like Shaman and things like that. You want to be the ability to break through steals. Like, I don't feel like I'm at a lack of steel breaking right now because I do have the Terrakion, and I've got Swampert actually, which is a relatively hard hitting ground type. But you know, yeah, I just don't want to be, you know, sitting versus like a Celesteela or something and not have a way to break through it. So that's what Darmanitan provides for me, so it's quite nice. My next mon, I was looking at the draft and that I had, and looking at the mons that have been taken, and you've got like Melantosh, who took Mew. Leo had just taken Cresselia. Like, bulky Psychics actually look very spooky for my team. I don't have any way to hit them for stab super effective damage. I do at least have like a Taunter and Terrakion, and I have a mon like Klefki, which can like T-Wave them and do annoying things, but I have no way to like prevent them from running Mono Psychic if they're running like Calm Mind sets or whatever. So I desperately wanted a Dark type. I really wanted Sneasel because it was at a speed tier that I didn't currently have. 115 is faster than anything I have on my team. Has that priority Ice Shard for dealing with mons like Lando and Zygarde and things like that. But my good pal Deebs ended up sniping that from me, so quite a number of snipes this draft. It was quite a challenge. So I had to settle on a different mon, and that is Drapion. And you might be wondering, like, what the heck is this nickname? But if you've ever seen that that Family Guy clip,
Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man.
Drapion kind of looks like that. He's got like these really long, awkward arms. And I could just kind of picture Drapion flailing hopelessly. And that's exactly what the Family Guy skit does. So that's why we're naming it WWIAFTM. So it's not the best nickname I've ever come up with, but Family Guy is pretty goofy, so totally worth it. But yeah, Drapion, good dark type. The typing that it has, Poison Dark, is very good, and it makes me feel a little bit better about having double poison. Because it doesn't actually share any weaknesses with Roserade. The Dark type covers the Poison typing, of course. Roserade is not weak to Ground because it does have that Grass typing. It's not a Ground switch-in necessarily. Like, I'm never going to be bringing that thing in on a Lando. But I digress. You know, so it's not too bad, you know, and it does give me a second Toxic Spiker, which is really quite nice. Because again, if I want to bring like a bulky Suicune with T-Spikes or something like that, I don't have to bring Roserade. Or I can bring Roserade, but I can bring it offensive, and then I can bring a Drapion with Toxic Spikes. But yeah, this thing is great for dealing with Calm Mind Psychics because it does have Taunt. It's got Knockoff, Pursuit, etc. It does not get Punishment, which is a move that I like to run to deal with Calm Mind Psychics. But that's okay. I think Drapion on its own can do pretty well. So, does it get anything cool like Beat Up? No, it doesn't look like it. But yeah, that's Drapion. Very eager to see how this thing works. It's very fast and actually gets cool moves like Swords Dance and stuff. So, definitely a cool mon. 3 mons left. First is Dick Grayson, my Gligar. And this is sort of what I settled on to make up for the fact that I missed Gliscor. It's not quite as good at stalling out as Gliscor is, but in a way, Gligar is actually more bulky because it does obviously run a Violite, which gives it tons of bulk on the defensive and SPDEF sides. And the fact that Gligar has immunity is actually quite nice as well. It's not the same as that Toxic Orb recovery that you get from having Poison Heal. but it does mean that I can't be toxic and that I should be able to roost stall almost anything that doesn't have a ice move or a water move. So I think Gligar will be pretty nice. It's another mon that can be a little passive. Base 75 attack is nothing to write home about, but you know, Earthquake is a powerful move. We do have options like Baton Pass and U-Turn that we can use to get ourselves out of sticky situations. And if we are also afraid of setup, we can pack Taunt on this thing. It gets Stealth Rock. You know, it's just a very good support mon. I think it's pretty fantastic. Next, we do have my Tier 5 pick. I was able to get away with only one Tier 5 mon, and that is Komala, aka Belowski. If you're a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, you'll know that Belowski is like this total, like, stoner dude who, cannot stay awake for the life of him. Like, the entire time he duels, he's, like, falling asleep, and he's just a total trip. And so it kind of reminded me of Komala, because this is a sleepy boy as well. But yeah, I actually liked Komala a lot in Tier 5 because it is a very good support mon. It gets, obviously, Spin, Wish. It has a pretty decent attack stat at base 115. It's a status absorber because it has Comatose. And it's important to note, too, that I have made this my Z-move user. So I can combo this with, you know, powerful returns or powerful coverage moves like Iron Head, Knockoff, Play Rough, Wood Hammer, Superpower, etc. And actually put a dent into some things. So I'm excited to use Komala. It supports mons such as Drapion, Swampert, Suicune, Klefki very well. Those are all mons that really appreciate the Wish support. So I think it's going to be a nice Tier 5 option. You know, you're not expecting your Tier 5 to be an all-star, but it's just something that you can hopefully bring every once in a while. And then last but not least, you'll notice that I'm missing an electric type on my team up to this point, and I don't have anything above base 110. And so for the majority of the draft, I'd actually wanted to go with something like Magnezone here for potential trapping to, again, pressure steals even further. Like, I'm already thinking that Terrakion forces a lot of prep in terms of berries and stuff, but now they would feel pressure to run Shed Shell. But I didn't feel like I could afford to make that pick. So I went with Lion-O, my Raikou, instead. And so we got two mons that are named after Thundercats. But it's appropriate, right? It's the two dogs. I guess, obviously, dogs aren't the same as cats, but it's close enough. They're four-legged, and they're furry, and they're friendly, and they're cuddly. Just like Lion-O. But maybe not. But yeah, Raikou, I think, is a really nice mon for the team. Gives me my fastest mon. Has lots of good sets that it can run. Like, I guess the standard sets are like offensive, offensive Calm Mind, screens. But there's other sets too. Like I just got bodied the other week by Vinku, basically a Subtoxic Protect Raikou, sort of modeled after Suicune, and it was brutal. I'm hoping I can bring that versus at least one person this season because you know, I like competitive strats. I like to do what it takes to win. And yeah, this thing has just enough coverage. Like Aura Sphere, Extrasensory, you can run Hidden Power Ice, Shadow Ball, Signal Beam. Like, it's actually got underrated coverage, I think. It's not a heavy hitter necessarily, only base 115. But I do like having an electric type because it forces your opponent to bring their ground types. And that's something that can be taken advantage of by my Suicune or my Lottie or whatever else. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be my team for the Baltimore Oriolus for the GBA D-League Season 4. And I hope you guys are looking forward to it. We have a lot of really great battles lined up. Obviously, we're battling everybody in the league this season. But it is going to kick off Week 1 versus OP Jellicent. And he's actually someone I've known for quite a while. He was in Season 3 of UPC with me. And we battled in the regular season. We both made playoffs, but he got it eliminated. I ended up actually winning the championship that season, which was fantastic. And I actually had Megaladios on that team, which is really cool. So that makes me all the more excited to use Megaladios, right? Because, you know, obviously they're twins or whatever. So If you are excited for the Baltimore Oriolus season, I do go ahead and ask you guys to drop a sub and a like on this video, and that way you're supporting me, and that way you guys can stay up to date on all of the latest D-League action. It's going to be a blast of a season. There's a lot of great competitors, and I'm looking forward to measuring myself up versus them. And yeah, that's going to do it for me. Make sure you check back to my channel for other gaming and Pokemon content. And until the next time, I'll see you guys later.